Good morning. Today's Daf Yomi is Chagigah Daf Zayin, Chagigah 7. We're going to start on the bottom of 6b, and the Gemara is discussing a verse that comes from the end of Parashas Mishpatim, which takes place actually chronologically prior to Sinai, prior to the giving of the Torah at Sinai. And the verse states, "Vayishlach es nari b'nei Yisrael." The verse states that the youth of the children of Israel sent forth. Vayalu olos, they brought ola offerings, which are entirely consumed. Vayizbechu zivachim, and they sacrificed zivachim shlamim. They made also shlamim to Hashem parim, bulls. So the Gemara introduced a question for Rav Chisda. By Rav Chisda, Rav Chisda has a question. How do we read this verse? Do we read it as Vayishlach as Narei B'nei Yisrael Vayalu olos, that they brought olos, which were kivasim? Those ola offerings were sheep, and then Vayizbechu zvachim shlamim Hashem parim, and then they also brought additional sacrificial offerings called the shlamim, which were bulls. Odilmar, perhaps, maybe Edi v'Edim, perhaps, maybe both of the offerings were parim. Maybe both of the offerings were bulls, meaning maybe the shlamim were also bull offerings. So the Gemara says, well, this happened at Sinai. It was a historical event. Why are you asking this question? Why are you asking this question, Rav Chisda? What's the upshot? What is there any ramification? So Marzutra says, yes, Lapisuk Ta'amim. How do we divide up? How do we apply the cantillation notes? How do we apply the words of the Torah? Because the musical notes that we attach to it, called the ta'amim, or as the Gemara calls it, the ta'amim, that there are certain words which are connecting and certain words which are stopping the topic. So if this is its own topic, Rashi says it will be what's called either an entnachta note or a zakif katon. But if it is also bulls, then it will be one of the notes that are connecting. So that's why we want to know how to read the verse. And the second possibility, Rav Acha Brei de Rava says, so if a person takes upon himself a vow and says, I'm going to bring an offering like the offering that the Israelites brought in the wilderness prior to Sinai, what does that mean? Does that person obligate themselves to bring parim, bulls? Param habo or kvasim habo, or maybe they're obligating themselves to bring sheep. The Gemara says, take it. We're going to leave this question unresolved. So now the Gemara says, since we're talking about the value of the Chagigah and the Re'iyah, that's what our Mishnah has been discussing. The Gemara says, Tanan Hasam. We learned in the Mishnah, now cites the Mishnah from Sachem, from Peah, which many of us have the practice to recite every morning as part of our daily prayers. These are those items which there is no amount listed to it. Meaning you can fulfill your obligation presumably with even a minute amount, but at the same time you're not done with your obligation. It's infinite. We're on top of 7a. What are those things? The giving over a corner of your field to the poor people. Now, technically speaking, Rashi says, biblically, there's no amount, there's no limit. You could just do a little small amount, but rabbinically, the rabbis say you're supposed to give over 1/60th. Now, the bikurim are the first of your fruits. Again, here too, there's no limit. How many you were going to bring to the temple in a basket? No limit. The areyon, and this is the topic, the topic du jour. This is our topic that we're discussing. The pilgrimage, and the Gemara is going to discuss what does it mean by the pilgrimage. Gemilut chasadim, acts of kindness. What are gemilut chasadim? Acts of kindness. There's no limit to it. There's no minimum amount. There's no maximum amount. V'talmud Torah and Torah study. Torah study is infinite. There's no limited. There's no small amount, and there's no maximum amount. So, Amar Rabbi Yochanan taught kisvurin anu omar. Rabbi Yochanan says, at first we thought that when it says the pilgrimage, there's no limit. At first we thought to say there's no upper limit. There's no upper limit, that you can bring as many sacrificial offerings as you want. But there is a lower limit, meaning to say that it has to be a minimum amount, like you said in our Mishnah. That the Mishnah says that according to Beit Hillel, the Olat Re'iyah has to be 1 meah, and Beit Shammai said 2 meah. So first we said that when they said there's no amount by the pilgrimage, that refers to the upper limit. That's what we thought the Mishnah meant. Ad Sheba Rabbi Shaya, until Rabbi Shaya came along. And what did Rabbi Shaya teach us? Rabbi Shaya Bar Rabbi taught us, we made harayon ingo shir lo amalav lo amata. He says actually there's no upper limit or no lower limit, but that's biblically speaking. Biblically speaking, there's no upper limit or no lower limit. Aval, however, Chachamim, the rabbi said, Hara'iyah mea kesef. The rabbis gave a minimum amount to the pilgrimage offering of 1 mea, and the Chagigah shtei kesef. And the Chagigah is 2 kesef. So now the Gemara says, wait 1 second. What is this rayon that our Mishnah is referring to? What is this rayon? So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Riyat Panim Ba'azara. Rabbi Yochanan says it refers to basically appearing in the courtyard of the temple, meaning to say that you can appear in the courtyard as many times as you want. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. He can appear as many times as he wants, and he doesn't need to bring a sacrifice each time he appears. You could show up without having to bring a sacrifice. Number 2 is Reish Lakish argues, and Reish Lakish says what it refers to is Re'iyat Panim B'Karban. It means to say how many times you can bring a sacrifice. Re'iyat Panim B'Karban, that's showing up in the temple and bringing a sacrifice. That's what it refers to, that you bring the sacrifice, you can bring as many sacrifices as you want for the pilgrimage offering. Now, Gemara says, let's understand this. Be'ikar Aregel, on the first day of the festival, and also meaning you have an obligation to bring a pilgrimage offering. So with respect to the first offering, everybody would say there that there's an obligation, and there showing your face means you have to bring a sacrifice. Where is there a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? After all the other days of the festival, after you've already brought your obligatory offering. So there, wherever you've showed up, and you brought one, if you show up and you bring an offering, everybody says we accept it. Where are we arguing? On the other days of the festival where you didn't bring one yet. So where you showed up and you didn't bring an offering. So the Rabbi Yochanan Savar, you don't need to. He says, he says, just show up in the courtyard. Showing up is enough. Every time you show up, you don't need to give an offering. Just showing up is sufficient. That's okay. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Reish Lakish says, no, it's not. Just showing up is not enough. Riyas panim bekarban. The kohen must asi tzarach asuye. Reish Lakish says, no. Whenever you show up, you need to actually bring an offering. Whenever you show up, you need to bring an offering. It's not enough just to show up. So again, at this point, the Gemara says that the dispute is when we say there's no limit to the pilgrimage. Rabbi Yochanan means you could show up every time without bringing an offering. And Reish Lakish says, no, every time you show up, you have to bring an offering. There's no limit to the number of offerings you're going to bring. So Rabbi Yochanan's idea is that you could show up to the temple anew each day, and you don't have to give anything to God. You don't have to make a sacrifice. So Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish challenges Rabbi Yochanan and says, it says in the verse in Exodus 23, "V'lo yira'u panai rekam." It says, you're not allowed to see my face empty-handed. That's this week's parasha. It says you cannot see my face empty-handed. So we see from here. So what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that you have to show up? Doesn't that mean you have to show up? So the Gemara says, no, what that means is, so he says, what that means is, it's not this week's parsha, I don't know why I said that. It says, well, you're gonna come. What does it mean? He says, Rabbi Yochanan says, that's not a question on me. That's not a question. You're saying, oh, it shows you can't show up empty-handed. No, that refers to day one of the Chag. On day one of the Chag, you need to bring your pilgrimage offering. But once you brought that, you could show up empty-handed. Another question on Rabbi Yochanan, because it says in the verse, it says you're not allowed to show up empty-handed. What does that mean? Bizvachim, when you show up to God, you have to bring a sacrifice. Ataomer bizvachim doesn't mean an animal offering, one of the livestock. So maybe it means you could even bring a fowl offering, an offering of the birds, or maybe also menachos, or maybe a grain offering. Vidinu, and it's logical. Nemra Chagigah lahedjot, v'nemra re'iyah legavoa, and it's logical to say this because it says that you bring a Chagigah offering on the festival, which you get to eat, which a person gets to eat from, and it says that the pilgrimage has to be for the altar. Just like the Chagigah comes from the livestock, so too the pilgrimage offering has to come from the livestock. Olos, but and then it says in the verse that it has to be olos. And it refers to olos. You need to bring an olah offering. Talmer olos, so we know olah shlamim. Does it really need to be an olah? Or maybe it could be a shlamim. Maybe it can be an olah is one that's entirely consumed, and a shlamim is partially eaten by humans as well. So maybe it's a shlamim. V'dinu nemra chagigah lahadjov nemra re'iyah legavoa. It says the chagigah for a regular one, and for a person, and the pilgrimage offering is for the altar. Just like the Chagigah for the hedjot is something that is ra'ilo, it is something that is capable, it is fit. Meaning to say that's something that you can eat on the festival. And it's only those parts that are edible. So too, so too the re'iyah for the altar is something that is roilo, meaning to say that you have to bring the best thing that's entirely burnt. And therefore you have to bring an animal, just like you bring an animal for the Chagigah, so it has to be an animal, a livestock for the olah, and so too it's logical. You can't take the best for yourself and then leave your master's table empty-handed. So whatever you're taking for yourself, that should be what you give as a sacrifice to God as well. So, but anyway, the upshot of this source is that it states you cannot see my face empty-handed. So it's a question against Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara explains, same answer. The same answer. He says, no, that's where you haven't yet brought a sacrifice yet. But where you brought a sacrifice, then it's the same idea that you can show up empty-handed according to Rabbi Yochanan. Third question on Rabbi Yochanan from Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. He says, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Omer Shalosh Regalim Bashana. There are 3 times a year in Nitzdavu that the children of Israel were commanded. The 3 times a year they're commanded to go up. You can't show up halfway, or half of it. We'll see what that means. Mishum Shanemar calls all your males, not half of your males. Ve'ein Nirin Rekanim. You can't show up empty-handed because it states, well, Yeru Panai Rekam. So you can't see my face empty-handed. Same question on Rabbi Yochanan. How can you say you don't have to bring an offering when you show up at the temple? It just says you can't show up empty-handed. So he says, same answer. No, that means where you haven't brought it yet, the first day of the festival. Comes along the Gemara. The Gemara says, okay, we've had 3 questions on Rabbi Yochanan. He dealt with them very easily. And what about Reish Lakish? Rabbi Yochanan challenges Reish Lakish. It says, Yirah. We could read it as Yirah, but instead we read it as Yirah. What does it mean? Ma'ani b'chinam. God saying, just like when I look at you, I don't give you an offering. I could see you for nothing. Avata b'chinam. So too you could show up empty-handed. Meaning to say you're not required to bring me an offering when you show up. Mar says, whoa. This is a strong question on Reish Lakish. You can show up empty-handed. It's explicit. So when the Gemara hears this, the Gemara says, you know what? Wherever you showed up and you didn't bring any offering yet, wherever you show up to the temple and you haven't brought anything yet, everybody says that you have to bring an offering. If you haven't brought one yet, everybody says you have to bring one. Ki puigi de astav aisi. So meaning to say, let me say this again. So the Gemara is going to say we have to redefine or reframe our dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. If you've already brought a carbon, but now you want to show up again, everybody's going to say, everybody's going to say that you don't have to bring an offering under those circumstances. You already brought one. You could show up a second time without an offering. Where do Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lakish argue? The asi ba'isi, where you want to show up with a second offering. You've already brought one offering. Now you want to bring another offering. Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Re'iyas Panam Ba'azara. So Rabbi Yochanan says that when it says Ra'ayon, it means showing your face in the courtyard. It means Re'iyas Panam Hudein Lo Shir. It means you could just show up. There's no limit to that. However, al karban yesh lo shir, but there's a limit to how many sacrifices you could bring. You can't just bring a sacrifice for no reason. And so therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is going to say that you're not allowed to bring a sacrifice. You're not allowed to bring an extra sacrifice, an extra pilgrimage offering. So he says, Riyas Panam Udein Lo Shir, but karban yesh lo shir. Whereas Reish Lakish says, Riyas Panam the carbon. No, when we say there's no limit, it means there's no limit even for the amount of sacrifices, these pilgrimage offerings that you can bring. Meaning to say, Nafil carbon nami English here. You could even bring as many sacrifices, as many pilgrimage offerings as you want. So the Gemara says, how could Reish Lakish say this? We're going to challenge Reish Lakish because it says Eisvei. We challenge Reish Lakish because it says Hokar. It says in the verse Hokar Ragocha. Meaning to say that you should, and Rashi says from your friend's house means from your beloved's house, from God's. Your feet should be precious or rare in there. Meaning to say, don't bring a lot of offerings. How could Reish Lakish say you're supposed to bring as many offerings? You can bring as many offerings as you want, when the verse states that you shouldn't bring as many offerings as you want, because it says Hokara Gochami Beis Reyecha. So the Gemara says, yeah, that's referring to the sin offerings and the guilt offerings. Don't try to bring a lot of sin offerings and guilt offerings. They should be rare, because that's an indication that you've sinned. Also, mechatos v'ashamos. And that's what sin offerings and guilt offerings. Elsewhere, the Mishnah has a discussion that some people want to bring a guilt offering or a sin offering every single day of their life to just cover all the bases. And this verse and this approach says no, that's not a valid approach. But try and bring as few sin offerings as possible. So that's how Reish Lakish would answer it. Kid Rabbi Levi, Rami Ksiv. Rabbi Levi threw two verses against each other. One verse is the one from Proverbs, Hokara Gochami Beis Reyecha, and the other verse is Ksiv Avo Beischa Bolos. I will come into your house with olah offerings. So that's from Psalms. So one verse says bring few sacrifices, and the other verse says a lot. Well, Kasha Gemara says it's not a difficulty. It's one by sin offerings and guilt offerings. Try and bring as few of those as possible. But the other is by the voluntary offerings, which are not related to sin, called the olah, which is entirely consumed, and the shlamim, which is partially consumed. And Tayina, indeed, we have a brayso that says that Hokara Gochami Beis Reyecha. Make your sacrifices rare. That's bechatos v'ashamos hakasim medaber. The first is referring to sin and guilt offerings. Maybe it also refers to the olah and the shlamim. Kishomer avo beischa. When it says ba'olos Hashem chanedarai, I'm going to pay my vows. Haray olos shlamim more. That refers to paying your vows, bringing sacrifices. That's the shlamim. Amani mikayim hokara gochami beis reyecha. So what does that verse mean? It means the Torah is telling us try to be very scarce with your sin and guilt offerings, because obviously you don't want to sin, so you could bring a sin offering. Also, you want to bring as few of those as possible. It's not a good thing to sin and then say, oh, now I'm going to bring an offering. The verse says, all your males should appear. It means that you should not appear in halves. So what does this mean? So Savar Rav Yosef Amemar. Rav Yosef thought that this means somebody who has 10 children. Well, you shouldn't take half today and half the next day. Bring them all at the same time. So I'm going to buy on top of 7b. Abai says, Pshita, well, that's obvious. Reason. You're going to bring half your kids. You say you come tomorrow and half come today. The ones who come today are reason. They're zealous to do the mitzvah. The ones who come tomorrow, they're coming a day later. That's called poshim. That's called sinners. Somebody says, I don't want to go today. I want to go tomorrow to a spiritual activity. That's called a sinner. So it can't be half today and half tomorrow. No, you have to bring them all the same day, the first day.
And also, do the
mitzvah immediately. You don't push it off a day. So what's the purpose of the verse? Look at the Acherim. Like we already had this earlier in the source. The Acherim taught us in the Brisa, the Tanya, we had this back on Daf Dawud, we're already on Daf Zayin. It says Acherim Omrim, Hamekamet, someone who is cleans up the excrement of animals. Someone who's cleaning, who's making copper, which is a very smelly job. Borsi, the tanner, all these very smelly professions. They're exempt from the pilgrimage. They're exempt from the pilgrimage. Why do we know they're exempt from the pilgrimage? Because it states, all your males have to go up to make the pilgrimage, which means Misha Yachol Alos in Kol Zaporcha, somebody who could go up with all your males. Yatsu Elu She'en Yachol Alos in Kol Zaporcha. These people can't go up with all your males because they smell. So since they smell, they're exempt from the pilgrimage. Okay, so now we're up to the Mishnah. The Mishnah on 7b. Now, just as a little background to this Mishnah, we know that there are offerings that are obligatory, like, for example, the pilgrimage offering. There are offerings that are optional, and that's one category. In addition to that, so let me just say, so that the Olas Riyah, everybody says is obligatory. Then there's another offering that we bring on the holiday, which is called the Chagigah offering. That's also, generally speaking, obligatory as a general rule. You're going to see the Talmud is going to say an exception to that. The Chagigah you get to eat from, but you have to eat this offering on the festival. And then the third category is if a person has enough food, doesn't have enough meat to eat on the holiday, they can bring a third type of offering called the Shalmei Simcha, which is another offering, a shlamim of joy. That's optional. And now, where can you pay for these offerings from? So let's say you already have money that was assigned to the temple, like Meiser money. Meiser Sheni money has to be eaten in Jerusalem. It's sacred money that was already assigned to be eaten in Jerusalem. So that's called assigned money. Can you take this assigned sacred money and use it for an obligatory offering? So the Talmud says you can't, because that's called double dipping. You already have to pay this tithe, and now you want to take that tithe and pay another sacred obligation. That's not going to be allowed. That's called double dipping, and we don't allow double dipping under these circumstances. Maybe under other circumstances we would allow, but not under these circumstances. So the Mishnah says, Olos b'moed ba'os minachulin. So let's say this pilgrimage money that you bring on the moed, the intermediary days, that comes from the chulin. That can only come from unconsecrated funds, because since the funds were not consecrated, they can be used however you want, meaning for sacred purposes. But if they'd already been consecrated, then you're not going to be able to use them to pay for your obligatory offering. But if you just have a regular shlamim, which is an offering that's voluntary or not obligatory, mina meiser, that, since it's an optional offering, that could come from some consecrated funds that you're able to eat from, like what's called the meiser sheni, because you have to eat that in Jerusalem, so you could use that to pay for a voluntary offering. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, when you bring your Chagigah offering, Beis Shammai Omer Minachulim, Beis Shammai says that money comes from, that Chagigah offering can only come from unconsecrated funds, because it's not a obligatory offering. And so, because it's an obligatory offering, and so therefore it has to come from money that was not assigned to anything. Beis Hillel says it can only come from, it can even come from assigned money, from Meiser money. And the Gemara is going to explain how could Beis Hillel say this? How could Beis Hillel say it could even come from Meiser money? Because if it's obligatory offering. And now we say, Yisrael Yotzin Yidei Chovasam Ben Adarim and Davos. That this refers to, says the Gemara and Rashi, that this refers to the Shalmei Simcha, this third category of sacrifice that you have to bring on the holiday, where if you need extra meat, then you could use it from, you have to pay for it from, you could pay for it even from this is what it says, Yisrael. This is just the laws of what type of animal you can use to fulfill your obligation. So the obligation of the Shalmei Simcha, Yisrael Yotzin Nechavasam and Adarim and Davos Ubemeiser Behema, that a regular Jew, a non-Kohen, can fulfill their obligation of the Shalmei Simcha with their voluntary offerings, with their Nadarim and Davos, and with their Meiser Behema. That's the 10th animal that you put a red mark on it and you bring it up to the temple and you sacrifice it there, that you could fulfill your obligation of your Shalmei Simcha with. The Kohanim can even fulfill their obligation. If a person brings a sin offering and a guilt offering, the Kohen gets some of that meat. And that he could use to fulfill his obligation of Shalmei Simcha, Uba Bechor, with a firstborn animal, which was given to the Kohen as a sacrifice in the temple. L'chazer Shok, these are refers to the gifts of the Kohanim, that the Kohanim get the breast and the thigh. Avaloba Ophos, Valoba Menachos, but not with, the breast and the thigh, those are the parts that are given to the Kohen from the Shlomim offering. But the Kohen cannot use the bird offerings or the menachos or the grain offerings to fulfill his obligation of the Shalmei Simcha. Nobody can. And the reason is not a Kohen, not an Israelite. And the reason is because Rashi says the purpose of the Shalmei Simcha is to provide you with sova. What's sova? Sova is with fullness. And there's a certain type of fullness that you only get from animal meat, and you don't get it from grains. And so therefore you only fulfill your obligation with this animal meat. So the Gemara asks the question, what do you mean? You mean to say that the Oos on the Oos Re'iyah, the pilgrimage offering on Chol Moed, that comes from only from unconsecrated funds. Oos b'moed hu debos min ha'chulin, habi yom tov min ha'meiser. So if you bring this pilgrimage offering on Yom Tiv, you could come even from your consecrated funds, your already sacred funds, or in 7b. So the Gemara says, but Amaya, Davar Shabachova, it's an obligatory offering. Called Davar Shabachova, if it's obligatory offering, it can only come from unconsecrated funds. And if you want to say, maybe that's exactly what our Mishnah is telling us. Maybe our Mishnah is telling us that the Olos are not brought on Yom Tov, they're only brought on Chol Moed. Come on, Beis Shammai. Then you'd have to say the problem with that is that our Mishnah then rules like Beis Shammai, which we don't want to say, because Beis Shammai was at the position, citing our Mishnah from Beitza and also Megillah. Beis Shammai was in the position that on Yom Tov itself, Mevi'in Shlamim ve'ein Somchan Alayim. Beis Shammai was in the position that on Yom Tov you bring a korban shlamim because you get to eat from it, so you can bring it, but you don't lay your hands on it because that's considered using an animal. And you're not allowed to use an animal on Yom Tov because it would be something that's set aside, muktzah. But avalo olos, but you can't bring an offering, an olah offering, according to Beis Shammai, because it's when it says you're allowed to do ochal nefesh, you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov. That's only for yourself, not for the altar. So Beis Shammai is of the position that you can't bring this Oas Re'iyah on Yom Tov. So you want to say our Mishnah is like Beis Shammai? We don't want to say that. Ben Beis Hillel says Mevi'in Shlamim v'Oas v'Somchan Alayim. So Beis Hillel says you can bring a korban shlamim and you can bring this Ola and you can even do smicha. So Beis Hillel is basically and lean your hand on the animal. So our Mishnah would say since our Mishnah we would want it to follow Beis Hillel, that would say you could bring this Oas Re'iyah on Yom Tov. So therefore it doesn't make sense to say that you could only bring this Oas Re'iyah on Chol Moed but not on Yom Tov. So therefore, the Gemara says, our Mishnah, it's missing some words. This is how you read our Mishnah. Olos nedarim v'nedavos b'moed bos b'yom tov einam bos. These voluntary offerings, called the nedarim and the nedavos, they can be brought on Chol Moed, but not on Yom Tov. If you want to bring a voluntary olah, that you can only bring on Chol Moed, but not on Yom Tov, because it's for the altar and you can't bring it. But olas re'iyah, whereas the pilgrimage offering, which is an obligatory offering, few will be Yom Tov. It even is brought on Yom Tov. When you bring it, this obligatory offering can only come, and it comes on Yom Tov like Beis Hillel, but it comes from unconsecrated funds. Whereas Shalmei Simcha ba'an afmin ha'maiser. Whereas the Shalmei Simcha, there's a third type of sacrifice that can even come from consecrated funds. The Chagigah Yom Tov Rishon Shal Pesach, and the Chagigah of the first day of Pesach, Beis Shammai Omer min ha'chulin. Beis Shammai says it comes from unconsecrated funds because it's obligatory. Beis Hillel Omer min ha'maiser. Beis Hillel says it can only come from. It can even come from the maiser sheni money from the consecrated, the funds that were consecrated for sacred purposes. And indeed, we have a brisa that says exactly this idea. That these voluntary oaths could come only on Chol Moed, but not on Yom Tov. Whereas the pilgrimage offering, could even be brought on Yom Tov, but it has to come from unconsecrated funds. It's an obligatory offering. The Shalmei Simcha ba'in afmin ha'maiser. And the Shalmei Simcha also can come from the consecrated funds. We'll stop here, but I'm happy to address any questions. Any questions?